Hello to you newcomers and welcome back subscribers. This is Big Baby Props and I'm the Big Baby. Welcome to the next episode of our Battlefront 2 Clone Trooper Coruscant Guard Officer Armor build. In this episode I'm going to be showing you guys how I sand and smooth our armor. By the end of it, our armor will be just as smooth as a vacuum formed kit and it's going to look great. This is also by far the hardest step of the entire process, so if you guys can make it through this, you'll be just fine. Plus, by the end of it, you'll have this cool looking kind of Arctic camo clone trooper armor, which I think is pretty cool. But with that out of the way, let's get right into it. To begin our next step, we're going to need a product called Bondo fiberglass resin, and here I have a shoulder pad just as a example piece of armor for you guys. This stuff comes in a two-part mixture. One, it comes in the resin, and two, it has a small bottle of liquid hardener. You mix these two together, stir them together really well, and after a few minutes it will start to harden, and after an hour or so you'll have a fully solid material. Now you can see me using a piece of aluminum foil. I just put it in the lid to the resin because once it hardens it's going to be kind of hard to get it out, so that way I can just throw away the aluminum foil. So you can see me fill it pretty well to the top. For that volume, I like to use around 16 to 20 drops of the liquid hardener. You can see it there. That is what we drip into our mixture. I'm sorry, that is what we drip into the resin. You're going to want to be sure and wear a smock, some gloves, as well as you absolutely need some lung protection, because this stuff really is just horrible for your lungs. It smells noxious, which is also why I'm doing it outside. So I just take a what are those called? Popsicle stick, yeah, and mix the resin together. Then I just take a cheap chip brush and begin brushing on the resin. You guys are gonna want to be sure and use a very cheap paintbrush for this, because once the material hardens, it's also going to harden in your paintbrush, making it basically unusable. A nice working station is also nice to have, because you can see I'm kind of struggling to paint it just on my knee. You can see me drip some resin out of the container there. So what I do is I grab just a table to work on that I don't mind getting a bit of resin on, because guys, this process is going to be pretty messy. I think I dripped a little bit of it on my shoe just now, and that's going to be there almost forever. So be sure and wear clothes that you don't really care about, and you have a wide open area for you to put all your pieces once you put the resin on them, because they're going to need around 30 minutes in like 70-degree weather to be able to be touched. So I have some area tarped off just so that I can go around to all the pieces and set them aside. I typically do 1 to 2 coats. I find that that's about all that I need. In most cases 1 coat will do fine, but for those pieces with the large surface area, like the thighs, they might need more than 1 coat of resin in order to get a full coverage, because you're going to want to make sure that you get every single inch of the armor with at least 1 layer of resin. Otherwise, when we start sanding, we're going to start sanding right down to the 3D print, which is a lot softer than this resin will be. Like I said, you're going to want to do this on a sunny and warm day. This resin hardens best around 70 degrees. Just be sure and read the instructions for a more precise measurement than what I'm giving you now. Basically what this resin is going to be doing is it's going to be filling in probably 90% of the 3D printer lines. Since it's such a thick liquid, it will really fill in a lot of those lines really easily. Now, I wouldn't use this method for something like the helmet, because the helmet has a lot more details to it, so it doesn't really mend well to a method like this, where I'm kind of just brushing on a liquid with really broad strokes. And once this stuff hardens, it takes a lot of effort to really get it sanded down. So for something with a lot of details like a helmet, I would use something like filler primer that you've seen me use in my other videos. But this method is great for something with a lot of surface area like the rest of the armor. If I tried to do this with filler primer, I would probably need 20 to 30 cans of the stuff, which would run 30 times 5, whatever that is, around $150. So this stuff, a whole can of it is around $15, and it'll last us the whole armor. So this is not only a time-saving effort, but also a money-saving effort. So once you have the armor fully coated with at least one coat of this resin, we can move on and start the arduous process of sanding. If you guys thought this step looked a little bit involved, sanding is going to be a lot more involved. So I hope that you're ready for some hard work, but I promise you guys, in the end, it'll be worth it. Okay, let's begin sanding. As you can see here with me, I have a few things that you're going to need. One, I have a mouse sander with around 60 grit sandpaper, so something really tough on there. You're going to need some power tools for the sanding of this stuff, guys. If you tried to do this by hand, it would take you forever. So like I said, on there I have a very tough 60 grit. It's really going to wipe off a lot of the material. You're going to need lung protection again, because this stuff will kick up a lot of resin that you obviously don't want in your lungs. So what I do is I take my mouse sander, I go along the entire piece of armor. I try and get probably 80% of a perfect sand, but you can't always get that, and it's kind of hard to see on the first pass through since the armor is white and the resin is clear. It can be kind of hard to see where you've already sanded. Once the part is clean, I like to take a black spray paint and just go over the part just a little bit. This isn't for any like a finish or anything like that. What this is going to do is make it very apparent where maybe we missed a spot or an area needs more sanding. So you can see, even though I thought it looked okay, there are still a lot of areas that we can tell have ridges in them, or just need more sanding, maybe some more material. And the black paint really helps bring that out. Plus, when we go through and sand the armor again, the black paint is going to do a great job of showing us where we've sanded already, because as we're going through it, the paint will be sanded away first, and wherever you don't see black paint, that means that you've sanded there. So any part that still has black paint on it means you might have to go over it again. So I'm going to take the mouse sander to the rest of the armor pieces, just like you saw me do there, and I'm also going to use the black spray paint on all of them, because we're probably going to have to do multiple rounds of sanding, increasing the grit on our mouse so that we get a finer finish. The 60 grit is great for taking material away, but it leaves the surface kind of rough. So maybe on our second pass through of sanding, I use a 150 grit. On our third pass through, I go up to maybe 250, and then I might do one final pass through by hand with maybe a 300 or 400 grit sandpaper. What you guys need to look for is that the seams between your armor pieces are filled in and smoothed out. Those are the places where we really need the resin to be smooth, and we obviously don't want any seams to be visible on our armor. I'm just going to speed all this sanding up just so that it gives you guys an idea of how much time you're actually going to have to put into it. Because like I said, this is easily the most involved part of the whole process. Once you feel like your mouse isn't sanding as well as it used to, be sure and replace the pads. I probably went through 5 to 10 60 grit pads over the course of the whole armor. So be sure that you have fresh pads while you're sanding. Also, if you're filming your sanding, be sure that you have a steady tripod. Okay, now that we're almost through sanding the armor, I'm going to grab our handy dandy Rust-Oleum filler primer. You guys have seen me use this on almost every other prop that I've finished. Now I said that we weren't going to be using it, but for the final coat, I found it appropriate. A lot of our sanding is really rough. Even at the higher grits, it can be kind of hard on the material and give it still a rougher finish than I'd like. So, right before my final sand through, I covered the entire armor in one coating of filler primer. What the filler primer is going to do is it's going to fill in some of the rougher cuts and edges that the sandpaper has made through all the parts. It'll also prepare us very well for our final round of sanding with like a 300 or 400 grit sandpaper. I only used one can for the whole armor, so you guys don't have to go nuts with this step. But similar to how the black spray paint helped us as we were going through some of the rougher grits, this filler primer will help us as we go through some of the higher grits, showing us where we have sanded and where we haven't. If you guys have made it this far in the process, I congratulate you. You're easily past the hardest part of the armor. As you can see, once you sand it after putting on the filler primer, you get this nice kind of looking Arctic camo look, which I really like. The next step in the process is going to be painting, so I hope that you guys come back to the channel and check that out in a few weeks. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you again next time.